The Israeli flag's central emblem, the six-pointed star, conceals a deeper history. For centuries, the hexagram was used in occult traditions and Luciferian rites, not as a symbol of King David. In fact, prior to the Rothschild era, Jewish use of this symbol was sporadic and controversial. It was embraced by medieval Kabbalists, magicians and alchemists, by Druidic witches in Europe, and by practitioners of ceremonial magic, including Satanists. The hexagram appears in ancient pagan artifacts. A 1,200-year-old Muslim mosque floor near Tel Aviv bears this symbol, as do Byzantine magic texts and talismans unearthed by archaeologists. In occult lore, it was often called the Seal of Solomon, supposedly the magical seal King Solomon used to control demons, according to legend. But nowhere in Scripture is David associated with a star. As the Encyclopaedia Judaica confirms, the star was not considered a Jewish symbol in antiquity. So how did this occult sign come to crown the flag of God's supposed chosen nation? The answer leads us back to the Rothschilds. The very name Rothschild comes from the German Rothschild, meaning red shield. Meyer Amschel Bauer, the 18th century founder of the dynasty, hung a red hexagram sign above his door in Frankfurt as the family emblem. This talisman, the Seal of Solomon, was red, signifying blood and fire. It marked the house of a moneylender who had given himself over to arcane forces. Meyer adopted the hexagram as his family's coat of arms in 1822, when the Austrian emperor ennobled the Rothschilds. From then on, the Red Shield was not just a clever surname, but an occult banner under which the family operated. According to researchers, they chose this symbol precisely for its power in witchcraft and satanic worship. The hexagram's form two interlocking triangles embodies the union of opposites, a key concept in Hermetic magic, as above, so below. Its 6 points, 6 triangles and hexagonal centre covertly encode 666, the number of the beast to those versed in esoteric numerology. Armed with this potent sigil, the Rothschilds lent it to the burgeoning Zionist movement. From the mid-19th century onward, the hexagram began to appear as a sign of Jewish national identity, directly due to Rothschild sponsorship. By 1897, at the First Zionist Congress convened by Theodor Herzl, a blue and white flag featuring the six-pointed star was unfurled as the emblem of Zionism. Many observant Jews at the time were puzzled, some even horrified at this new Star of David, knowing its pagan pedigree. During the Nazi era, a grim, ritualistic irony took form. Hitler compelled Europe's Jews to wear the yellow six-pointed star as a badge of shame. But to the Nazis, steeped in occult practices and symbolism, the act carried deeper significance. They were not merely tagging a people for persecution, they were marking them with the very emblem the Rothschilds had long claimed as their own. In this way, the symbol became more than a stigma. It was twisted into a seal of ritual sacrifice, binding the victims under a perverse spiritual theatre that the regime believed amplified their power. From a prophetic perspective, the Rothschild-engineered return to Palestine was a bold inversion of God's kingdom. Scripture and tradition spoke of Israel's restoration as an act of divine grace led by the Messiah, a spiritual rebirth of Israel under God's hand. What the Rothschilds delivered instead was a secular, socialist-leaning state midwived by bankers and diplomats, soaked in the blood of war and the occult. Indeed, many Orthodox Jews at the time discerned something was terribly amiss. The ultra-Orthodox community, Haredim in Jerusalem, recoiled at Zionism's godless leadership. Shocking evidence indicates that Zionist elites were willing to sacrifice masses of their own people to advance statehood. During the 1930s, as Nazi persecution of Jews intensified, the Zionist agencies placed severe limits on Jewish immigration to Palestine. Yes, you read that correctly. Many European Jews desperately sought refuge in the Holy Land, but Zionist bureaucrats, under British oversight, turned them away unless they fit certain ideal criteria. From the ashes of those sacrifices arose a phoenix, the State of Israel, declared in 1948. It's a thought almost too dark to contemplate, yet the spiritual inversion is plain. What drives a family to orchestrate such grand deception and carnage? To answer that, we must peek behind the velvet curtain of the Rothschild parlours into the private spiritual life of this dynasty. According to eyewitness accounts from those who have dined with them in their English manners, the Rothschilds set an empty chair at their dinner table reserved for Satan. The Rothschilds have been Satanists for many generations, writes Fritz Springmeier, a veteran investigator of occult lineages. For example, in 1972, Baroness Marie-Helene de Rothschild threw a now infamous surrealist ball at the Château de Ferrières. The lavish party was attended by the era's elite, Audrey Hepburn, Salvador Dali, etc., who arrived wearing grotesque occult-themed costumes. The hostess herself wore an enormous horned stag's head mask, dripping with crystals like diamond tears, unmistakably evoking Moloch, the horned deity. In Jerusalem today one can find Rothschild fingerprints in architecture that blends the modern and the occult. The Israeli Supreme Court building, for instance, was donated by the Rothschild family in the 1990s. It conspicuously features Masonic and Illuminati symbols in its design, a pyramid structure on the roof complete with an eye-like aperture, recalling the Eye of Providence on the US dollar, and carefully laid out geometric gardens with occult significance. Notably, Israel's first Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, a close colleague of Rothschild interests, predicted in 1962 that within a few decades all other continents will become united in a world alliance. In Jerusalem, the United Nations will build a shrine of the prophets to serve the federated union of all continents. In 1913, a Rothschild-aligned fraternity known as B'nai B'rith, a secretive Jewish Masonic order, created the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, in the United States. It's no coincidence their formation was the same year as the Federal Reserve, as if anticipating the need to silence those exposing their plans. By all accounts, the ADL operates more like an intelligence agency or mafia than a benign civil rights group. They have been caught spying on American citizens in a 1993 scandal. ADL operatives were found to have thousands of dossiers on activists, journalists and politicians deemed hostile to Israel or Jewry. By the 1980s and 90s, the ADL was openly attacking respected figures like former President Jimmy Carter, who, after leaving office, dared to speak frankly about Israeli violations of Palestinian rights. In 2006, when Carter published Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid, the ADL's then-director Abe Foxman vilified him, and mainstream outlets dutifully echoed the talking points. Consider the fate of a few brave dissenters. Congressman Paul Findley of Illinois, a moderate Republican, served 22 years in the House. But after he committed the unforgivable sin of meeting with Yasser Arafat in the 1980s to explore peace, pro-Israel donors funneled money to his election challenger. Meanwhile, the consolidation of media in the late 20th century placed much of the news and entertainment industry in the hands of a few conglomerates, often sympathetic to the Rothschild-Israeli narrative. The ADL even pressures tech companies now, calling on social media platforms to ban or algorithmically suppress content that ventures into these forbidden zones. We also have the chillingly blunt quote, often attributed, perhaps apocryphally, to Voltaire, or more recently to Kevin Alfred Strom. To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize. This brings us to the present, where we confront a puzzling reality. In Western politics, Israel is sacrosanct. In the United States, both Republicans and Democrats compete to profess their loyalty to Israel. Anyone who has watched US presidential debates will note the ritual genuflection every candidate must perform, affirming Israel's right to defend itself, promising to move heaven and earth for Israel's security. As one Washington insider put it, when it comes to Israel, Congress is not a representative body, it's a choir, and the choir leader is in Tel Aviv. Political figures live in quiet terror of crossing an invisible line. They know that a well-funded opponent could materialize in their next primary election if they displease the wrong lobby. They know that campaign donations can dry up overnight, speaking invitations can be cancelled, their name can be dragged through mud on the evening news, all for uttering inconvenient truths about Israeli apartheid. Many of these conglomerates' key figures sit on interlocking boards and elite councils, like the Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, etc., alongside Rothschild emissaries. However, cracks in the facade are appearing as independent voices on the internet age gain followings. This has prompted the power structure to double down on censorship under new guises. They know that as long as they control the story, they control the mind. It is very much like an occult spell cast on the masses. Keep them blind to the man behind the curtain, and the illusion of the great and powerful Oz stands unchallenged. As we conclude this deep examination, we return to where we began the spiritual dimension. On a mountaintop in the wilderness, according to Scripture, the devil showed Jesus all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time, Luke 4:5, and said, "All this power I will give you, and the glory of them. For it has been delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will I give it." The Rothschilds, it appears, accepted that offer which Christ rejected. Through centuries of patient maneuvering, they have accumulated dominion over much of the world's financial system, media apparatus, and political machinery. And at the heart of their grand design sits Israel, not the Israel of biblical prophecy, but a counterfeit kingdom, flying the banner of Lucifer himself. The six-pointed star that waves over Jerusalem today is not the shield of David, but the seal of Solomon in his apostasy, the mark of those who have chosen another master. The truth has been hidden in plain sight all along. The question remains, will humanity awaken to the deception before it's too late, or will they continue to worship at the altar of the false star, believing they serve God while actually serving his adversary?